Hello and welcome to the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative podcast. My name is Rim. I'm an artist, a certified life coach and an NLP practitioner, and the creator of the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative retreats. Passionate about celebrating joy and beauty in the everyday, especially when things are falling apart, I'm insatiably curious about human nature, and I look into the world with reverence, awe, and a sense of wonder. Tune in for stories exploring healing through creativity, art, embracing sensitivity, and navigating the subconscious mind. I'll talk about the struggles that highly sensitive and creative people face, and share my experiences, insights, and favorite tools along the way. I'm here to empower you to turn what we often deem to be a curse into your biggest gift. I believe that the more we create together, the more we heal the world. So let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative podcast. I'm so happy and grateful for you tuning in. I'm excited to share with you the last part of my journey, part 3, the unraveling of the dream and discovering gold in the process. Before we start, just want to quickly mention that I will be sharing, at the end of the episode, I will share about this very special retreat that I'm hosting in Provence, in the south of France, this June. It's from the 8th to the 13th of June, and it's something you don't want to miss. It's going to be an amazing retreat. But before, let's dive in the episode. After moving to London and thinking I would stay there 2 years, I ended up staying 7 years and created my fashion brand. And just when I turned 29, I decided to move back to Paris. So here I was, the last year of my 20s, back to Paris, and looking forward to a new decade, and also looking forward to grow my brand. When I moved back, the first few months I was super excited. I was riding the wave of the adrenaline, and I was there was the momentum. And I think also I had to muster so much energy to organize the move in a very quick way that I didn't have time to really sit back and think too much. I was really in action mode, but then once I moved back and I had settled and everything, I started to feel a huge emptiness. Readjusting to Parisian life was tougher than I had expected. After all, I had been away for 7 years. Although, yes, of course, Paris and London are not far. I would travel back and forth several times per year with the Eurostar, which is quite a short train ride. But still, Paris and London are really different. So close, but so different. So yeah, and I found that all my friends had moved on with their lives, obviously, without me during all that time. And so the first few months were a little bit odd for me to adjust, and it started to become difficult to get up in the morning. Also, at the beginning of winter, as the seasons changed, I find my mood is also changing. I think it's also the lack of nature. I mean, Paris has some parks, but it's not the same as in London. Paris is, I think, more urban, as in, it's like more streets, paved streets, buildings. There are only a few parks. They're quite small compared to London's parks, and they're not as many. And I think it's also adjusting to the difference, to the culture, to administration stuff, like, new things, like doing things differently. And I also noticed, oh my God, the French administrative system is so complicated compared to the UK. Well, anyway, I think there were many factors. Also, thinking that I was gonna turn 30, and I was starting to feeling, the pressure of I haven't achieved all the things I wanted to achieve by age 30. So I fell into depression really for several months. I think my depression lifted up the day after my 30th birthday. So it took me a bit. I was still working on my brand, and I was working out almost every day in my room so that I could at least move my body, because I knew that would keep me sane. But it was still difficult to get up and to go through the day. But eventually I made it, and I thought, I think what would make me more motivated would be to make some adjustments into my business, into my brand. I want to make clothes. I was getting bored with the bags. I had been making bags for 4 years. And of course, I loved it. I mean, initially, I loved it until I didn't really love it anymore. It's not that I didn't like the bags. I loved my products. They were very cute, and I really poured my heart into these designs. But I, I didn't I didn't see myself making bags forever, and maybe I didn't want to make the same bags. Also, it required a lot of work from me, a lot of practical work. I had to be sewing, like it was homemade. So I was sewing, making, cutting fabric. Back in London, I had found a seamstress to help me, but now that I was in Paris, I had no one, no team, nobody to help. So I was back to doing everything on my own, which was a heavy work. And as like when I was spending time doing the stuff, making the stuff, I could not spend the time developing my business. So I felt like I'm trapped. I would like to develop my business, but I don't have time to do it because I have to be making the stuff. And I started to resent it. And there's another thing is I noticed that most of my customers were buying my products for weddings. That's not at all what I had thought at the beginning. I was just making it like that. I hadn't thought through it, which in a way is great, because maybe if I had thought too much about it, I would not have done it. I would have been overthinking. But then that's how it happened. And, I have nothing against the wedding industry, but I felt it doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't resonate with my beliefs. At that time, I was really against weddings, at least for me. I didn't believe in wedding. I didn't believe in getting married, and I thought that's a waste of time, to like I was quite cynic. My parents had divorced. My parents divorced when I was in my early 20s, but I had secretly wished that they had divorced 10 years earlier. So I didn't really have this example of happy marriage in my family. And I thought, well, working in that field is weird for me, and it doesn't resonate with my heart. I don't feel like I can pour my heart and soul into that. So I was thinking, how can I develop? How can I pivot? And I thought, well, clothes. I love clothing. I studied tailoring. I love understanding, and then I love spending time coming up with a nice cut. And I think clothes are a great way to express, to empower women, to express their personality and so on. So I began developing a mini clothing collection, a capsule. And I found someone to help me sewing it and making it. But by then, it turned out to be much more complex than what I had thought. And the problem with clothes is all about the sizing, the fit. I mean, it's much more complex than accessories, which is why it's much easier to develop an accessory brand than a clothing brand. And I did it. I did it for maybe 6 months, and my seamstress left. I found myself having to. I had some orders, and I found myself having to stitch the dresses myself. So pressing, cutting fabric, making, sewing the clothes. I'm not a seamstress, I can sew, but I'm not a seamstress, so I was doing it slowly. And it was very stressful for me because sewing has to be really good quality. And I was really nervous that I would screw it up. And my fabrics, the textiles were quite expensive. I use silk and tulle and all these flimsy fabric that are really, I mean, it's a bit tricky to stitch because if you make a mistake and you unpick it, then it makes holes. So I had to be really careful. So I felt like this is a lot of stress for me, and I'm being stuck in my atelier becoming a seamstress. I know it's the beginning, but I don't see how I can develop it. I would need a lot of money, a lot of funds. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I can invest or look for investors and all of that. And I tried, but not, I think I didn't try hard enough. I was really self-doubting myself at that time, I think. It seemed like a lot of hurdle, a lot of things to overcome, and I was convinced that I needed to learn from people who know more than me on that field. Because after all, I didn't really have a real job, a proper job, proper experience. I said proper between brackets because, as it turned out, that doesn't mean anything, but I was convinced about that back then. I thought, well, I only worked as a freelancer, but without any guidance. I was just, like figure it out on my own when I was working for London Fashion Week designers. Then I started my brand. I also had, like, I was figuring it out as I was doing it. But now that I want to make it bigger, more complex, I really need to. I don't think I can figure it out. It seems like a huge mountain to cross, and alone, without money, without investor, I'm not sure. I felt like I needed to work for proper. I say proper again between brackets. For I need to work for a proper fashion company. So I understand. I've never visited a fashion factory, like a clothing factory. I don't know how it works. I guess how it works, but I haven't seen it, and I want to figure it out. I want to understand everything. I need guidance, all of that. I was like, basically, I was really thinking I was not enough. I was thinking other people know better than me, and so on. And at the same time, I wanted to travel. So I thought I want to travel the world. I want to, like, I'm tired to work so hard for so little. I mean, I love my work, but loving my work, like loving having a passion, is not enough. It's actually starting to kill my passion. The last thing I want to do when I go home is draw or think about clothes or shopping. I'm exhausted, and I feel like I'm stuck in my office. I cannot travel. I can't really have my own home like I am. I'm still in a small room. I want to be free. I felt like this is keeping me small. I thought that if only I could meet someone more experienced than me who could show me the way, then everything would fall into place. I had a lot of work experience, but I felt like at age 32 I didn't have proper experience compared to my friends, or not serious enough. I felt irresponsible, and that was a big shadow of mine for many years. And in hindsight, I see how this ties to my childhood poem, La cigale et la fourmi. It's the grasshopper and the ant. It's this story by La Fontaine about this grasshopper who is singing all summer while the ant is saving, is industrious, is working, hardworking, and saving. And comes winter, the ant has a warm house with lots of food, but the grasshopper has nothing because it's cold, and It has nothing. It was busy singing and dancing during summer, and then it comes to the ant and say, "Well, can you help me, please? Can you give me food or give me shelter? I'm cold." And the ant says, "Well, you were singing during the summer. Now you can just dance." So basically, the ant doesn't help, and the grasshopper is screwed and probably is gonna die of starvation and cold. And in my family, it was said that I was the grasshopper and my elder sister the ant. She was always saving. She always seemed to be responsible, to be succeeding more than me. She was more organized, cleaner, tidier. She had a better handwriting. She was drawing better. When I was coloring, everything was going outside. Like I could not stay within the lines, and she was very clean. And she seemed to have succeeded better than me at school than in life. And I was more about enjoying the present moment, maybe indulging a little bit more than she did. I started to feel guilty about that. I thought, oh, now I'm being punished. I was not as reasonable as she did. And here I am. I'm 32. I'm struggling with my brand. Yes, I started a brand, but I didn't save. I was not precautious. I was not really responsible. And now I'm probably not going to have anything. Whereas she has built her career steadily. She made the wise choices. She made the reasonable choices, the safe choices. And another big thing is my dad, a grasshopper, if ever there was one, was a big source of sorrow and a model I was terrified to follow. Yes, he was very talented in art. Everything he touched with his hands turned into magic or into gold. He could create beauty, see beauty very easily, amazingly. But in insight, I learned that he was depressed. But I felt he's not responsible. He has a family. Even though he's divorced, he still has a family. And when I was young, he didn't take care of me, didn't take care of us. And he has so much talent, but he's not doing anything with it. He's like the struggling artist, always depressed, drinking away his sorrow, and really not doing anything. And I thought, okay, I really don't want to become like him, but I'm becoming like him because I'm not making anything out of my business. Yes, I did for the first 4 years, but now I'm like not finding the motivation to keep going. I was also feeling depressed. I felt a bit lost, and I was really, really scared I would become like him. Which is funny because I was working all the time. I was working a lot. I've always been working a lot. When I'm interested with something, I work a lot. But I felt it's never enough. It's not enough. Until one day I could feel in my guts that it was time to put my brand on pause. I could not do it anymore. My heart wasn't there anymore, so I closed it. I put everything on sale and I closed it, and I thought, okay, now it's time to look for a real job. I found one. I found one. I thought it would give me an identity that I could fit in, but it turned out to be a disaster. The guy who hired me was a horrible person, seriously. It was a job in Le Sentier, if you know that. If you're familiar with Paris and the fashion industry, you would know. It's this kind of wholesale neighborhood in the heart of Paris. It's not high fashion. Anyway, but I thought it's a job. I'm starting somewhere. At least I will have like a monthly salary. I can relax for a few months. I can relax for a while. It was a 3 months contract. I thought, how tough can it be? It's just 3 months. But it turned out to be a nightmare. And 3 months, it felt like 1 year. This guy was racist, sexist, chauvinistic. He hired people illegally. I didn't know before, but I discovered that. And he was doing moral harassment, really toxic abuse, psychological abuse, and it was really horrible, turning people against each other and threatening people and all of that. And during that time, because you know how they say and how life is often one thing doesn't come alone. At that time, my grandma passed away, exactly when I was the last month at that job, and it was horrible. Yes, she passed away. It was really sad because I loved her. I was very close to her, and yeah, well, it added to my depression, I would say. Then I left that job finally, and it took me 1 month to recover. And just as I was beginning to open my eyes and recover a little bit, my father passed away. I was really sad, even though I was really angry at him at that time. I was still angry. It was still my father, and yeah, it was a shock. I didn't expect it. So I fell into depression again, and it was really hard. It was winter as well, and I didn't know how I would get up, how I could find strength again. The only way, the only thing that was giving me joy was cooking. I had another boyfriend at that time, and he loved food like me. I started to cook special stuff, to experiment and create recipes, and I started a food blog. Well, it was not only a food blog, but mainly food blog. And I began making things with my hands, craft, DIY, play with clothes. I shared all of this in my blog. I started to meet like-minded people in Paris, so kind of recreating a community. I began feeling happier and alive again. Finally, spring came. I was like, okay, maybe this new chapter is starting after all, and I can find faith again and joy and energy again by creating and doing things that I loved as a child, actually. But within me, I still felt cooped up in Paris. I was so looking forward to traveling and discovering the world. At some point, a job offer came out of nowhere, a job opportunity in Shanghai. Shanghai? In China? Wow, I was so surprised. I never thought about that option. Well, I knew that in China there are lots of fashion factories, lots of things related to fashion, obviously, made in China, but I didn't think about it. Initially, I said no, but everyone around me pushed me to reconsider. My little sister, who loved Japan, had been to Japan, Korea, even to China several times. She told me, you know, Rim, there is so much out there. I think you will love it. It could be a very interesting experience. And I thought, yes, why not? I don't have children yet. I've just finished my, I just closed my business. My first job experience here was a disaster. I lost two important members of my family. You know, maybe a new air would be good for me and discovering the world. So I thought, okay, I accepted the job and I moved to Shanghai. In summer 2014, I took the plane and moved to Shanghai, packed my stuff and moved to Shanghai. I arrived in August. It was monsoon season. And when I arrived, it was so hot and humid. I was used to heat, you know. I grew up in Tunisia, but that was dry heat. Shanghai is humid, 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 especially in August. That was like whew, quite a shock, and I didn't speak one word of Chinese. I had tried to learn a little bit over the summer, a few basic words, so at least I could say hello, thank you, this basic stuff. But still, it's like very different from, very difficult to remember what I had learned and to understand what people would say. But big shock, big cultural shock. So it was heavily raining, tropical rain, storms. I was in a very Chinese neighborhood, like not international neighborhood, so nobody could speak English. And yeah, the, actually, I could never forget that first day, first night, first day in China, seeing that rain, and I felt wow, so exotic. I'm discovering a totally different world. How exciting, how awesome. I was so thrilled. I started that new job, and soon enough, I found my apartment, which was really nice, very centered, very well located. And I started to find myself at home in Shanghai. I really immersed myself in the city. I took Chinese classes. I've started to go on weekends, visiting some cities or countryside around, hiking. I really liked it. I felt the energy is so different than the energy in Europe, especially in Paris. I always felt limited in Paris somehow. I had thought that having lived in the UK and speaking English would be an asset for me in Paris, but it turned out that people could not label me and they didn't seem to like that. They're like, yeah, and well, you did your business, so you kind of didn't have a normal path, and you're too different. We don't know what you do and who you are. Like, you're weird. Like, I felt I don't fit in, and what I thought was a strength turned out to be not a strength for job market and everything. Whereas in China, in Shanghai, it seemed to be an asset. People were much more positive, dynamic, solution oriented, looking for looking to build things. I felt there is a very strong entrepreneurial vibe in Shanghai. And something I love about the Chinese mindset is, at least, I'm not saying everyone is the same, but something I really felt in Shanghai, also in Shenzhen later on, is this idea that we try, and if it doesn't work, no problem. We just try again. Like there were so many shops opening like mushrooms. And of course, not all of them would work. So, like, one shop would open one day, 1 week later, it's a different shop. They close down, and those who open the shop, they close it down, and then they open somewhere else, or they try something else. So maybe they tried a flower shop, it didn't work. Then they open a food shop, it doesn't work. So maybe they're gonna just try, they say no problem, and they try nail salon. That's just an example, but you know what I mean, like this vibe of there is always something we can do, and we don't make it mean it anything about ourselves. At least that's the impression I had. What people told me is, you will see here, everything is possible, which is true, in good, in bad, but mainly in good. Everything was possible over there. It's a vibrant city, multicultural, a little bit crazy, a bit messy for sure, a mix of the 21st century and 19th century commingling together. So you have one foot in the future, one foot in the past. Very interesting. My first 4 years, I really enjoyed traveling. I traveled all over East Asia. discover the culture, learning more about the culture and the language, enjoying the cuisine, the arts, the crafts, nature, the diversity of nature. It was really, I was like blown away. Meeting people from all over the world, that was so refreshing compared to Paris. I I've always loved meeting, maybe because when I grew up I was in an international high school, so that's what I'm used to, people from all over the world. But I've always loved and always, I think I will always be interested in learning people's stories and cultures. And I always see the similarities between cultures. I've always found, well, we're very different, but we're also so similar. So I was always looking for the similarities and also learning from them. I living in China made me see how full of ourselves we are in Europe. Because growing up in Tunisia, I was really looking forward to live in Paris. I felt cooped up and I felt like, Europe is so much better, so much more open. Yes, for things, for certain things, for sure, especially the status of women, but actually not always that open for women. But anyway, that was my dream. And then I lived in Europe. And then when I moved to Asia, I saw that Europeans, we are so full of ourselves and so arrogant in some aspects. I think all human beings are also arrogant in some other aspects. But it was very, seriously, it was really humbling to be open to like a radically different culture and the way they see things. And meanwhile, at work, things were not so exciting. From an outside view, it looked like I had it all. I had a good job, great salary, very nice home, good looking boyfriend. I was making it in a very, I was traveling, discovering the world, enjoying my time, learning lots of new stuff, taking courses here, taking courses there. I felt free, independent, like the world was my oyster. And yet I was feeling empty within, exhausted, drained, depressed. I felt, what's the point of all that? There is no meaning. Yes, I could enjoy all the fine dining I wanted, brunching every weekend if I wanted to. Like my life had all the luxuries that I thought I wanted. Nice clothes as well, I forgot to say. Traveling, nice clothes, nice home, nice dining experience. I was not counting money at all. I knew I could pay everything I needed and more, plus saving money. But my spirit felt dying. I was like, I didn't understand what's the meaning of all this. I resented the lack of freedom at my workplace, the moral abuse, the feeling that actually what I was doing was useless. I was not contributing to the world in a meaningful way. I was really happy about the money, and that's what kept me going for 4 years. I would say I enjoyed the first 2 years. It was okay. But the last 2 years, it was really tough. And the last year, I began to arrive late at work almost every day. I could not get up. Like just the idea of opening my door, I had to fight, and it was a big struggle. I had to really wait till the last minute until I would open my door and leave. It's not the job itself. It's the culture, the people. It's always, I think it always comes down to the people. If we work with people whose culture is like work culture is too different from you, too different for your beliefs, too different from your values, it can get really hard to keep going. As a sensitive soul myself, I I would feel everything so intensely, the injustice, the the mean words, the cold shoulder, all these little wars, all these little fights that people go go about in the workplace, the politics. Yeah, there was a lot of politics. I really dislike that. And the boss displayed a lot of qualities similar as my sister's. And interestingly enough, I found out that she was born the same day. I don't know if it's related, but I thought, oh, how interesting. She was a bit of a narcissistic as well, very tough, very manipulative, uh, pretending that she wants our opinion, like she wants things to get better and improve, but never taking into account, saying yes one day, saying no the opposite, insisting on policing us and controlling everyone. And well, I really hate being controlled. I feel like when I know that people don't trust me, it's really hard for me to give my best. And I felt like I was always control and that I always had to prove something. And that was taking a toll on my self esteem. And colleagues between each other, they were kind of spying on each other and just waiting for the other to fall so that they wouldn't fall. It's this kind of atmosphere. And yeah, I really felt like a prisoner, but in a golden prison because I was earning good money, had a lot of time off so that I could travel during the year. So I don't know, it took me a while to realize that maybe I had to say no to this lifestyle, at least in that way. And a very important point is my job was not creative. I thought it would be because I was teaching fashion students, but at the end it seemed more like a factory work because we had so many students in one class, so many teaching hours, so many things that we could do or could not do. So that also was very draining for me to be outside of myself all the time, all day long, to check what they were doing. They wanted me to check everything. That was too much. That's when I learned I was a highly sensitive person. And being outside of my brain and my mind all day long, every day, was too much. I was absolutely exhausted when I would go back home at night. I had met someone who told me about new moon rituals, and she said, well, when it's the new moon, you can write your intention and bury them in plants because it's nature and the soil, and it kind of, it's like planting a seed. And I thought, oh, okay, that's an unusual ritual. Let's do it for fun. I was also a little bit desperate, to be honest with you. I was very depressed. And one new moon, I wrote down that I really, 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 really wanted to do something more creative, more fun, more joyful. I wanted more art in my life. And I buried this paper in my plant and I went to bed. The day after, I was at work and just during my break, I checked my messages and I saw someone posting on a group chat that she was looking for a textile artist. I was like, oh, that's me. I remembered how much I loved creating stuff with textile when I was a textile student. I reached out and she was the head architect at Starbucks China. And we talked. As soon as she told me what she wanted, what was her project, I could instantly visualize it, and I knew, I was like, yes, this is for me. I can do it. That's totally, like, I've never done it for someone like as a work, but I know I can do it. I can feel it. I understand it. I feel with textiles. I perceive stuff with textiles, but I knew it because I experienced it when I was a student. And then I kind of left it aside because my dream and my goal had always been to be a fashion designer. But as soon as I was talking with her, I felt this again, like it was truth, like an obvious thing. So we worked together. I created several projects with them while I was still at that job. And that woman told me, "Well, you're doing well. Maybe you can have your own business." And I thought, yeah, maybe she's right. I might not need to stay in that unfulfilling job anymore because now I'm having this option, and I can see actually this is something that lights me up so much more. I'm curious to follow this path, to follow this project, this idea, and see what happens. So I left the job. It took me a while to take this decision because it was my first real full-time job, and I had kept it for 4 years. And I was like, okay, I'm going back to the uncertainties of being self-employed. And this time I'm in China. It's far away. It's not the same as being in France or in the UK. The implication is stronger, is bigger. But I was really enthusiastic about it, and I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? In the worst case, it doesn't work out, and I don't know, I will go back to France or I'll find another job. So I left. I quit that job. I felt such a relief. I knew it was the right decision because really I was exhausted about that, not happy, and I set up my company in Shanghai. Interesting experience setting up a company in that place. And I got a new contract with Starbucks, so I did a third project, and then I got a few more art projects with other companies. And another very weird thing or magical thing happened around that time. A woman I had met at a yoga class, we had talked a bit, and she also used to be a textile designer. And she told me, Rim, I'm going back to the US and I have a loom and a knitting machine, and I don't want to bring them back. It's too much, too heavy, and like, would you like them? And I was like, wow, what crazy manifestation. It was like um, maybe 15 years after studying weaving at uni. So 15 years later, at the other side of the world, a woman gives me a loom. It was like, wow, magical. When I was 20, I was dreaming to have a loom, but it was really unpractical and not feasible back then. And then I totally forgot about it. I went about my journey doing other things, and then suddenly, when I'm really not thinking about it, in Shanghai, in China, I got a loom. It was really amazing. This really goes to show how life can be so full of surprises, and surprises bigger and more magical than we can ever expect, really. I thought, yeah, maybe this is my path. As fate would have it wasn't meant to be. COVID happened. I was in Shanghai, and everything collapsed. The projects I had cooking got cancelled one after the other. I could not find work. I didn't have any income coming in. My savings were slowly disappearing, and I really had no idea how I was gonna make it through. I didn't go back to France because I didn't think it was gonna last so long, and my projects were not cancelled yet. I mean, not all of them. And by the time they got cancelled, then France was affected by COVID. It seemed to be actually more dangerous to be back in France than staying in China, because back by then the situation had improved in Shanghai. And well, so I was kind of stuck there, and I decided to wait and see what I could do. The first thing I did as soon as COVID broke was to organize a creativity challenge for charity, because I didn't like being useless. I felt, well, I'm seeing all these people struggling. We heard about these people in Wuhan, which is the origin city, that they didn't have food, didn't have access to masks, all of that. And I thought, I want to contribute. Yeah, I don't have money, but I don't have a lot of money, but like, yeah, maybe I'm powerless, but am I that powerless? I got the idea, this was like an intuition, that I could host a challenge, and with this money, with the fund collected, I could help them, I could participate. And actually, doing that would help me to go through that time. Because, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but at least I can control what I do and how I behave during that time. And also, another point is I could see and hear people saying through the social network that they were so anxious that they have to stay at home, they don't know what to do, they are bored, they are not used to staying. And me, I'm very good with staying in. Like, I've worked from home almost all of my adult life, so I knew how to manage my time at home and how to do creative activities, and actually I was never bored. So I thought, I'm gonna do a creative challenge to help people see all the beautiful things they have within and that they don't know of. And at the same time, I will use the phone to contribute to the crisis. So that happened. I was really glad about it. It lifted my spirits as well, you know. So it was also great for me, and building like connecting with others through art, through fun, through creativity, helping people in need. And for me, this felt like really great, and I could sense that maybe this was a path that would be great for me, because it came naturally. It's like natural. I didn't have to learn, I didn't have to study, I didn't have to prove myself there. I felt like I'm enough. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this since I'm a child. Remember in the first episode, I shared in my childhood that's what we were spending our days: drawing, dancing, making stuff, being creative, telling stories, sharing with my family members. So that was natural for me. I just never thought this could be a professional option for me. I tried to launch that. I tried, but I felt overwhelmed. I felt very stressed, because I still deep down I felt like I'm not enough, and that was not serious, that was not responsible. I had all of these shadows, that what I do is not good enough, and I always need to work hard to prove myself. So I discarded that idea and instead joined a business idea with a friend. And this is something I learned later, that giving up on your ideas and on what lights you up to do something for somebody else or with somebody else because you think that they know better, it's a big mistake. But I didn't know. back then. So I had to make that mistake. I started this business with her. It turned out that she was not a friend and that she was also a manipulative person, and I could I could see there were some signs, there were some red flags, but I dismissed them. Because I could sense so many things, you know. I could feel things, and but it was not always very rational, and I was trying to rationalize everything and to make everything logic. And I ignored those red flags. I was trying to be understanding, and I have a lot of empathy, so I had a lot of empathy for her too. And compassion. I was, yeah, well, she has the right to choose this and that for her life. You know, what people choose, it's their rights, and it doesn't have anything to do with the way they work. And who am I to judge? You know, I need to give a chance to people. And this phrase that I heard all of my childhood, make an effort, take it upon you, was still big in my head. So that's what I did. I made an effort and took it upon myself and ignored the red flags and kept going. And my friend was not doing the work. She was just busy going to cocktail parties and showing off while I was doing the hard work behind the scenes. And I was a bit resentful, but I didn't dare to say anything. And I was taking it upon myself, making an effort until everything blew off. And overnight, she took everything over. She stole everything from me, basically. She betrayed me. We had a fight, and that was it. All my designs, all the designs I had done for us, it was under her name. We had a contract, but you know, it's easy to break a contract. I mean, it's easy to break, but then of course I could sue her. So yeah, overnight everything disappeared from me. I kind of lost, she took it away from me, so I did not have access to anything we did. And she pretended the work was hers, whereas it was mine. And this was really heartbreaking. This was the last straw because I had another experience a few months earlier working with a person, another woman who was well established in the Shanghai design scene, and she had dangled the carrot that she will help me to turn my ideas into real products because she knew everyone. She was very well established. She knew important and influential people. She introduced me. She had the money, and we could be business partners. Until it turned out that she was actually using me to her own benefit. And I saw it, thankfully, I saw it before I went too deep into into it, but it was a kind of bitter. It was not a nice experience, and bam, I reproduced it right after I reproduced it with that friend. And that time I saw it too late or acted on it too late. So I was burned, and it was very painful. It took me a while to recover, and I began to think that maybe my dad was right. I was really too naive and too irresponsible. Maybe my sister was right, that I was the grasshopper who was not able to plan and to be responsible and careful and all of that. And maybe I was doomed to be a failing artist, a failing creative at least, because I was still not calling myself an artist. I could not, I would not be an artist. These few months were quite tough when I was questioning everything about my choices, about what happened so far, what was unraveling, like what was I meant to do, because I seem to be failing everything. And well, a job offer came at that time, and it seemed really good, and it came like as a serendipity. Everything came easy. It seemed to be falling into place so simply with ease that I thought it's the right choice. And that I thought it was to work as a fashion designer, and I thought, okay, that's the last chance I give to fashion because I really tried for many years. I thought about this for a long time, Do I want to keep working in that field? Do I want to stop? I, I had by then I had been quite disillusioned by the fashion world, and but this company seemed so good. The boss seemed so nice. We had a very good connection. I thought, okay, I'm gonna give it the last chance. And honestly, I was getting broke day by day. I didn't really know how I was gonna pay the bills. It was COVID, so and I was heartbroken by that friend experience. So I took the job, and also that job was in Shenzhen, which is south of China, just next to Hong Kong. And I was looking forward to a much warmer climate and being closer to nature. Shenzhen is different. It's a bit like Hong Kong. There are mountains in the middle of the city, so you can go hiking just very easily. You don't need to take the train for hours to be in nature. And I was looking forward that. I moved to Shenzhen. I found a great apartment, but the second day, one of my cats disappeared, and I thought that's kind of a bad luck, and it seems like a really bad sign that maybe I made the wrong choice. I was so desperate, so sad. Another, I was like heartbroken even more, and I thought, how can it get any worse? Well, thank God, 2 weeks later, I found my cat. But it turned out that the prophecy, the prophecy of the missing cat turned out to be correct. That job wasn't good for me. It became a nightmare, and you know what? I'm laughing because it's. I mean, there were so many signs showing me that there were some issues that I had to face. You know how they say, well, if you keep running into the similar situation, well, what is the common denominator? It's you. Well, it's me. In that case, me, every time I work for somebody, is a disaster. I do my best. I always start full of good intention. I do my best and I really want to. And then I realize they are nutters, but I keep going instead of leaving, instead of trusting my intuition, or instead of trusting what I see, what I hear, what I perceive. I knew they were crazy, but I kept going, and I told myself all of those stories that I don't have the choice and I need the money, and maybe it's not going to be that bad, maybe it's just a wrong impression. And I don't regret my choice because, well, I had to learn it. I had to learn it that way. So that's it. But, well, I could have saved that time, really, that experience. Anyway, so I went through it. It turned out even more crazy than I could ever imagine. The woman who recruited me quit the job 2 months, no, even not 1 month after I arrived. So I felt kind of let down. And after that, all hell broke loose. There were a few narcissistic women, well, at least they display narcissistic behaviors, fighting for power. They didn't care at all about practicality, doing the job fast and in an efficient way. No, it was like, seriously, it didn't make any sense. It was insane the way they talked to people. Insane. And I don't like when people talk to others in a very disrespectful way. And so, and maybe also because I'm French, I was kind of telling my colleagues, what? How can you accept this? We need to strike. Revolution. No, no, no. But of course, well, in China, there is no such a thing as strike. And the company was a Hong Kongese company, but these women, it was a mix of Hong Kong women and American women. Actually, some of the most terrible of those were American, from New York. very tough. And well, let's say it was an interesting experience. And I was working a lot. There was a lot of pressure to work hard, work long hours, work long hours, do more, undo, do again, undo, do again. Like I felt like I'm jumping through hoops and cycling on the wheel like a little hamster, cycling always faster. And I was like, oh my god, okay, this salary was really good. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay 6 months, 9 months top until I can save enough, and then I can leave China, because now France, the situation is getting a little bit better with COVID, and but it was really tough. Thank God, one woman came, the one who replaced my boss. She came, and I mean, a new person came, and she was really nice, a Danish lady. She was amazing, and we got on very well, very quickly. She could see and sense what was going on, that nothing made sense, and we both had some hope that things will change with her. So I decided to stay a little bit longer, to see what could happen with her. But unfortunately, the others resented her. They could see that she's smart and she's trying to change things and, implement new processes and frameworks and stuff so that things are more efficient, make sense, and so that we can use the potential, tap into everyone's potential instead of going against that potential. Anyway, it didn't work out. The others didn't appreciate it, and they were kind of trying to do something to push her out and trying to turn everyone against each other, and I decided to quit. I defended her, and when I saw that she was gonna leave, I left as well, because without her it would be a nightmare, and it was just about time, because I was really on the brink of burnout. So after that, I decided to give me a few weeks to rest and recover from all of that. It took me a while. I was having a lot of nightmares because it was really exhausting and stressful and insane. I even thought maybe I'm becoming mad, because nobody was like, some people were complaining, but they were still doing it, still playing the game, and I felt like seriously I'm losing my sanity, because nothing seemed to make sense at all. And yet they were having the power and the job and the promotions, and me, I was being threatened every week. And I was like, why? And so yeah, I was also almost gonna think, definitely there's something wrong with me. Why? Why am I always getting into those jobs? Why I cannot find a normal, like normal, it doesn't mean anything, but why I cannot find somewhere respectful and where people have a decent working hours and decent company culture and all of that. And I decided to take a break. I decided also, after meditating on this a while, I thought, that's it, I'm stopping fashion. I've tried in many different ways. I tried different facets of the fashion industry, and my conclusion is it's a really strange industry. I mean, full of unstable people. I'm not saying everyone is like that. That was my experience. But I felt like I've tried enough, like there are signs, like maybe I need to listen to all of the signs telling me, stop going forward in that direction. It's not for you. Because seriously, it was becoming very dangerous for my health, for my mental health, and also for my physical health. I just couldn't take it anymore. It had ruined my love for fashion. Really, I felt like I really don't like it anymore. But I want to. I don't want to live bitter and hating it and being resentful. During that time that I gave myself to recover, rest, ponder, I spent a lot of time on my balcony. I was lucky to have a balcony in my apartment, so I spent time watering my plants, talking to them. Woke up very early. I took the habit to wake up early with the sunrise, Um, it was easy because it was very warm, very hot. It was summer and very hot, so quite easy to get up with the sun. And I, on some days, I would go to the beach by the sea and watch the sunrise over the sea, and then walk. There is a beautiful hike. Well, it's not a hike, but a beautiful walk in Shenzhen that goes from west to east, and it's a promenade along the sea, and all across the sea we can see Hong Kong, and it's a beautiful walk. We go through gardens, mangrove gardens, and also some other flowers. I'm not sure which ones, but very with a very nice scent, and it's really a place that made me feel good and alive and joyful again. Or I would go hiking on some of the mountains. And then when I would go home, drink some cold coconut water and draw. I began drawing again, something that I had cut myself off for years, even though I used to draw all the time as a kid. When I studied, I shared in my past, in the previous episode 2, that ironically, when I studied fashion design and art, I began not enjoying drawing anymore. Um, I developed a very strong mistrust in my abilities to draw. Um, but in that time, it's in that season, while in Shenzhen, in the other side of the world, stranded because of COVID, that I began drawing again and I began enjoying it again. I decided to stop pressuring myself to draw well or to do it in a certain way, and to just do it for fun, just let my hands guiding me. And I enjoyed, yes, the first few days. It was a little bit difficult, but not that much. And the more I did, the more it felt natural. And that really helped me to reconnect to to my soul, really. After a few weeks, I felt strong enough again to, and I could see clearly, and I decided to leave China and go back to France. I thought, okay, I've seen a lot in China. I've traveled a lot in East Asia. I did what I had wanted to do before. I wanted to travel. I wanted to discover the world. I wanted to discover and learn about the fashion industry in China, visit some factories, learn more about the industry, see a different side. And I did. I did all of that. I even created a business there. I had done this wonderful textile artworks that I loved. So in a way, I reconnected with a lot of things that I loved. I was 39 and I told myself, there's no way I'm gonna be 40 in the same situation. Like, I'm not gonna settle for that. That's not how I see my future. That's not what I envision for myself. And I also took the decision to leave fashion, but it was for the best. So I sold everything. I had very little time to move for many reasons, like my visa expiring, getting a spot in the plane. I had rescued two cats, so my two cats. So I wanted to live with them. So I had to move fast. I had to sell a lot. Like, I kind of lost, not lost, but I kind of sold everything. I kept only the things I really love. And so at 39 years old, left for Paris. And I am so lucky I took this decision. I'm so thankful I took this decision, because only a few months later, like, they got very strict with their COVID policy, and it became really hard and really tough over there. I'm so grateful that I had this clarity and could listen to my intuition back then. But this time I moved back to France, but I decided not to stay in Paris. I was really craving nature calm, a slow pace. I thought I've been living for 20 years in huge cities, big megapoles. I've done what I've kind of wanted to do. It didn't turn out as I expected, but I've been through a lot. I've had a lot of experiences, some beautiful, some quite tough. I want to calm down, like I want to pause and I want to reflect on why I was attracting or why did I put myself into these situations, repeating behaviors. Why did I keep ignoring some huge red flags? Why did I attract these manipulative, abusive women in friendships and in the workplace? I thought I really need a retreat, I need to retreat myself for a while. And I chose the place where I currently am. It's near the Alps, and I chose this place because it's where my grandparents are from. Even though they left when they got married, they left and moved to Paris. That's where they grew up. And I thought it would be interesting as an inner child work to go back where my roots, my French roots, began and soak up the atmosphere, the vibes, the land over here, and do some inner child healing. I felt like my inner child feels really scared. I'm repeating many scenarios that I felt I had lived as a child, and I'm repeating them as an adult. It doesn't seem to end. There is some healing to do there. So that's what I did. I spent a lot of time walking in the countryside, talking with my mom. We had a lot of conversation, heartfelt conversation, and talking about my childhood and later what happened, what was said, what wasn't said. Yes. And I signed up to an NLP, which is Neuro Linguistic Programming course, and I loved it. I took the certification. NLP is a kind of it's a variation of coaching, really. It believes into the study of language, and language as in verbal and non-verbal language, and how it impacts our subconscious and how our subconscious impacts our conscious mind. I think I will do a podcast episode about that to go more in depth into that. So for the second time, I felt, oh, this is coming quite easily to me. I don't need to work extra hard. I don't feel like I need to prove myself. As I was coaching my classmates and we were coaching each other as part of the program, I felt, wow, it comes easily to me. I can, it requires good listening skills. I have good listening skills. As an HSP, it's simple for me to tune in into someone's emotions. I can easily tune into them, to their emotions. I have compassion for them. I can understand what they're going through. I listen quietly. I'm able to be present in my listening. I'm able to tap into my intuition. Naturally, I find the ways to guide them during the session, during the coaching session. I can spot patterns between different things that they are saying, and I can make links between different parts of their lives, and so that they can understand and see things through a different light. And I was so, wow, like dumbfounded, like, so it does exist. I don't need to prove myself all the time. Maybe I was just trying too hard before in the past, and it was probably not the right path for me. It was not a very easy time. It took me a while to recover from all of those experiences, because for so long, from as young as 9 years old, I had decided I wanted to be a fashion designer, and therefore I took so many decisions from that angle, from that choice. I thought this was my identity. I had tied my identity for so long to that when I didn't have this identity anymore, I didn't really know who I was anymore. It took me a while to uncover, to rediscover who I was. And the way I found it was by regulating my nervous system to heal my, I don't think heal is the right word, but to address the fact that I was always in fight or flight mode. My anxiety was really strong, so I needed to take care of that first. Spending a lot of time in nature. I did a lot of hypnosis, self-hypnosis as well. I took up yoga more seriously. I gave myself a lot of time to rest and a lot of time drawing, eating nourishing food, painting, experimenting. And little by little, I had begun to feel better, to understand myself better, to understand why I had gone through those difficult times. Why did I keep following the same patterns? Why did I keep attracting these situations, these people? There was there were some big decisions I had to take in regards to my family, my sisters. This is maybe for another time. Um, there was a lot of healing to do about this, about my family, my vision of family, my hopes for my family, what could have been, what was not, and what will never be. I needed to forgive myself as well, forgive them, but also forgive myself, and find joy again, reconnect to my dreams, tap again in my childhood dreams. For a while, I can say I lost faith. I thought, well, I will never make it. I am 40. I failed at so many things. I did try, yes, I did try at many things, but I failed all the time. I always end up burned out, overwhelmed, not fitting in, making the wrong choice. My intuition is sometimes right, sometimes wrong, or maybe I don't hear my intuition anymore. I don't always hear it. I don't really know where to go, what to do anymore. Yes, I went through this period of doubt and questioning everything, questioning myself. It was dark. It was dark for a while. Step by step, I began to see the light. Hope came back. I could see more possibilities. I started coaching other people until one day one client told me, I love coaching with you because you're a highly sensitive person, you understand me very well. And that was like a light bulb moment because I knew I was a highly sensitive person, but I had not really paid attention to that. I had discarded that. But when my client said that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course, yes. And then I asked all the other people I had coached, and they didn't know they were HSP, but I asked them specific questions, and then I realized, wow, they're all highly sensitive person. So I attracted them. They were attracted by me, and I was attracted by them. we 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 understood each other. I felt like we all go through so many similar things, so many similar struggles. Even though I did coach some people who were not highly sensitive person, I felt like I could bring more to those who are HSP like me, and I studied more about HSP. I delved a bit deeper. I read the book by Elaine Aron more in depth, and this helped me a lot to understand what I had been going through. I realized that many of those experiences, it's not only about being an HSP, of course, it's also the culture I grew up in, the different individuals in my family, me as well, my personality, my own karma, um, but it's my family, which is kind of quite dysfunctional, but still. As an HSP, actually, I learned that we are much more prone to be impacted by our dysfunctional families than non-HSP. So I think it was a great thing to discover that because it allowed me to forgive myself a little bit more. I could actually realize that it's not all me who got it wrong. It's also because I'm different than the others. Or also, it's not like the others are not that mean. It's just they just don't know. They just don't feel the same as I do. And that's why I decided to create retreats. I had this in the back of my mind for a while. And as I began to feel much better, I gained more clarity on what I wanted out of life or where I wanted to go, and at least, and most of all, who I was, like who am I? I felt much more clarity on that. And the idea I had few years ago to host retreats began bigger and bigger in my mind. I've done a lot of healing, I've done a lot of withdrawal from the rest of the world to calm my nervous system, to repair, to heal, and I want to share this with others. My mission is also to help. I thought if I've been through all of this, there's a reason why I've been all of those trials and errors and failings, and also some beautiful light bulbs moment and lessons learned. I want to share it with you. And since art and creativity and drawing and the appreciation of the beauty of nature connecting to my senses have always been there for me when I needed it the most, when I felt depressed, when I felt burned out, when I was grieving, when I had lost faith, it was always there, even though many times, again and again, I dismissed it as not being serious, as not being responsible. I was afraid I would become the homeless grasshopper. It turns out it's not true, it's just fear. And I tried yoga, I tried meditation, I tried a lot of modalities. I would probably do more podcast episodes about all of the things I tried. um, but just to sum up, I did try a lot. I did it, like, probably tried everything. And lots of these things are great. I'm not saying like all of these tools are really great, but for me, a creative person at heart and someone who connects to art very intensely, that had to be a very important ingredient in my healing. So that's why I wanted to create those retreats to link all the tools that have helped me for you. If you feel like you've tried a lot but still are still feeling overwhelmed, are still feeling burnt out, maybe you're at a crossroads in your life, you're changing career, and you don't really know where to go, who you are anymore. Maybe you're going through some dysfunctional relationships. If you too, you've been feeling like taking a break from it all, if you've been feeling like life feels just too much, and you wish for a lot of quiet time and breathing space, just like I did a while ago. If you're feeling frustrated, depressed, or even trapped by your circumstances, like life has lots of flavors, you are not alone. Please know you're not alone and you're not doomed. If you too, you're always the person friends or colleagues rely on when they need to unload. You're kind, empathetic soul, you're sensitive, you wish the best for others, and yet you don't feel this attention or this energy reciprocated by others. You keep finding yourself misunderstood and undervalued by others, just like I was. I want to say it's time to reconnect to your superpower, your senses, emotions, feelings, and creativity. If this is you, I'd love to invite you to join me and a small group of like minded souls for a very special retreat in beautiful Provence for 5 magical days to reignite your dormant dreams and desires while cultivating new and exciting possibilities. Embark on a regenerative and joyful immersion in the magical beauty of Provence. Soak in its colors, textures, scents, sounds, and flavors, and form meaningful connections with people who get you. Particularly beautiful in June with the various shades of greens of the garrigue and the azure blue sky The vibrant acres of the Provençal Colorado is a natural paradise that invites your heart to soar. This amazing retreat will touch on all your senses and all aspects of your being: physical, emotional, mind, creative, and soul. You'll walk the Oka Canyons, listen to the sounds of wildlife, share laughter, give free rein to your creative expression, and relax into rediscovering lost dreams and new possibilities as you celebrate and uncover the next chapter of your life. We will meet our inner wisdom through mindful and creative practices led by me and other local healers. There will be sketching, drawing, watercolor painting, wildlife birdsong, reflexology, walks in nature, a French cuisine cooking workshop, and an herbalist walk. By the end of our 5 nights together, you'll be relaxed, re-inspired, and ready to dive into the next chapter of your life with clarity and newfound confidence in yourself. Join us this June from the 8th to the 13th for this unique and intimate retreat for sensitive and creative souls. Limited spots available. To claim your spot, click on link on show notes. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if it has inspired you, please share it around you. Also, if you feel called to it, please subscribe to the podcast and leave me a review. It really helps to spread the word out. All your questions are welcome. You can send them to me on Instagram at rim.creativenergy.com or email me via my website rimcreativenergy.com, and don't worry, I'll share in the show notes exactly where to find me. Until next time, sending you loving creative energy.